All right, everybody, here we go. It's going to be Legg, Calve, Perthes, and you should definitely understand Legg, Calve, Perthes, because one of the worst things that I think that I could do in practice is have a kid who comes in with a limp, not do a detailed assessment, and now they have to get a hip joint replacement early in life, when if we caught it early, we could have prevented that outcome from happening for them. So Legg, Calve, Perthes is effectively avascular necrosis of the femoral head in a child. So what happens here? A couple of different names for it that we should be aware of. Bilateral in only about 10% of cases. But again, if you're doing good due diligence, you should be doing that bilateral examination. It can be called osteochondritis deformans juvenalis, ischemic hip necrosis. You name it, there's a bunch of different names for it. Age 4 to 10, this blood supply in the round ligament, also known as the ligamentum teres, can be disrupted. And if it is disrupted, it leads to collapse of the femoral head. This ischemia causes lack of development and growth and will eventually lead to femoral head collapse. And this causes osteoarthritis later in life. So incidence, it is not common, but again, be aware of it. 1 in approximately 1,200 kids under the age of 15. Average age is around 7, but we give that range of 4 to 10 years that the literature would suggest. Again, more common in girls than boys, but just be aware of it. 6% of patients have a family history. There is a genetic predisposition. It's not clearly understood just yet. And risk factors include male, lower socioeconomic status, low birth weight. Again, not understood the reason on that. Smoking, secondhand smoke might be involved, sickle cell anemia if they have a genetic predisposition for that condition, and trauma to the hip. So if they had congenital hip dysplasia or their hips were dislocated in some kind of accident, that will increase the risk of this happening as well. But a hip dislocation is a pretty rare one, but still put that on your list if they've had prior trauma. I had one patient literally, oh yeah, when I was 8 years old, I got ran over by a car and dislocated both of their hips, and they had Legg, Calve, Perthes bilateral. A rare example, but still something that you would want to toss out there. What do we get? It looks like osteoarthritis, but it's in a kid. And if I see this in a kid, now I'm freaking out on my brains here a little bit because it might be this Legg, Calve, Perthes. So it is a gradual onset of hip or knee pain. Do not get confused. Remember that the hip can refer pain down to the knee. So when a kid comes in with a limp, you are evaluating the knee and the hip. And we'll talk about that more with a SCFE as well, slip capital femoral epiphysis. They may also have groin pain, dull achy pain exacerbated by hip movement. Again, I am concerned for this kid, okay? They may have an antalgic gait. You'll see them leaning over to one side a little bit, or an antalgic limp that we can see a little bit lower. Do not dismiss this as growing pains. Give it at least its due diligence. Do a first assessment and then see the person again in a couple, 3 days or a week max and see how they're doing with it, right? Palpation may show tenderness over the medial groin, hip, and thigh. Again, area of sensitivity. So make sure that there is a parent there with you and you have extra consent working in this area when you're palpating this region. Motion may be reduced, especially in abduction and internal rotation. But again, you don't even have to remember that. If you see a kid and their range of motion is reduced, we've got to change the way that they're moving, change the way we're moving. We have to give this a more detailed evaluation. What else? Early phase, flexion, adduction contractures might be there. Later phase, the hip might only move in the sagittal plane as it starts to get locked down a little bit later. You may also see a Trendelenburg gait. When they're walking, they take that step and they kind of drop their hip down off the affected stance leg. Differential diagnosis, well, neurovascular should be within normal limits, but differential diagnosis should be septic arthritis. Number one thing you have to rule out. Number 2 should be a SCFE. I should add that to that list right there, slip capital femoral epiphysis. It could be a transient synovitis where it's just going to go away on its own. Could be a sickle cell anemia, secondary issue, hemophilia. They could be bleeding into that space potentially. Congenital hip dysplasia. Again, hopefully they already knew that from having Ortolani's and what is it? The test for congenital hip dysplasia, Ortolani's click test. And, I forget the other one. We'll come to it in a second here. What else? Special tests, Anvil, Patrick, Thomas, Trendelenburg. These are all basically hip challenges. You might even do a light scour test and see how they do with that. All these have potential outcomes that could give you better diagnoses. Finding X-ray is usually how we're going to confirm this diagnosis. MRI is actually excellent for early detection, but if you're doing a quick evaluation, X-rays are readily available everywhere, and you can see relatively small changes to begin with, but you're looking at sclerotic changes, potentially cysts developing in the area. Remembering, of course, these are secondary growth plates that are happening here. You can tell this is a pediatric x-ray because you can see the growth plates between the ilium, ischium, and pubis, as well as the line that we see between the neck of the femur and the head of the femur. Loss of structural integrity in grade 3 and femoral and acetabular integrity is actually crushed down a little bit. So if we look at this on the left side on this film, we can see a nice round head of the femur right there. And on the right side, we can see it flattened out. So this person is already on stage 3, stage 4. If it was still rounded, that would be very difficult for you to actually pick up on an x-ray. MRI would be a far better choice. So if you have any doubt, MRI is going to be a better choice for you. Ultrasounds, if you have a good tech and the kid isn't overweight, you can usually get an ultrasound that has good depth penetration. It could potentially show you this as well. What else? Bone scans can show you increased osteoblastic activity in that area. Again, not specific for this condition, just showing you increased activity. And CT is also recommended. It's a more detailed x-ray that's going to show us the changes as well. And you can see the different types from type A, B, and C. This is another classification system, but your goal is, oh, this person's still got a chance because they've got normal shape to the femoral head. But as it collapses more and more, you are progressing down the road of degeneration and earlier hip joint replacement. General measures, your main goal is to prevent further slippage or damage compression taking place. Avoid high impact weight bearing activities. That means running, jumping, anything where they slam onto hard surfaces. Consider bed rest or crutches short term. Crutches are great because the limb can still swing back and forth, but you're not going to get that impact trauma into it. Okay. And again, refer for orthopedic evaluation. That is foundational for this condition. Do not take this on yourself. You need to have some kind of orthopedic evaluation. Massage can be of benefit once they've been medically cleared to go ahead and loosen up the area, potentially a little bit of light range of motion exercises. The same thing with osseous mobs and manip, looking towards traction, again, once medically cleared. And you want to look at orthotics potentially later on because this can result in leg length inequalities that could result in areas of compensations as well. Electrotherapy, acupuncture have good benefit. Of course, our basic nutritional support is going to be there as well. Medication, short-term use. Later on, this person may be looking at hip joint replacements early in life. And don't necessarily scare the person right off the bat, but they do have to be aware this is something that could be out there in the future. Prognosis is better with early diagnosis. The problem is it often takes a long time to make this diagnosis. So if you are a diligent practitioner and you can find this diagnosis early, you can save significant life impairment later on for this person. 50% resolve without treatment. A watch and wait is not a bad strategy, but I would not do it myself. I would share that risk with another medical provider. 60 to 80% do well regardless of treatment. Long-term Legg-Calve Perthes may result in femoral head deformities and degenerative joint disease. We know that. Prognosis is proportional directly to the level of the head collapse. The worse it is, the more you are going to see the increased risk of progression here. Always consider imaging in a child that comes in with a limp, especially if you see them once and follow up in a week with them and they still have that limp or it's progressing or it's getting worse. You have to do a more detailed evaluation. There's significant conditions here that can have drastic effects on their overall life. So that would be Legg-Calve Perthes, which is effectively avascular necrosis of the hip. Again, earlier diagnosis results in better outcomes. Kid who comes in with a limp, you need to do a very detailed evaluation and relatively frequent follow-ups to make sure that you're not looking at a more rapidly progressing condition, even something as crazy as septic arthritis in there. So fantastic condition. All right. Thank you very much. And we'll see you on the next video.